My beloved child. Tonight is not a coincidence. Your eyes stopping here are not random. Every second you stay is already part of a design that began long before you ever questioned your own worth. Somewhere far beyond noise and crowds, a wealthy man has been watching patterns, not faces. Movements, not names. Decisions, not luck. And inside those patterns, your existence keeps appearing again and again, like a signature the universe refuses to erase. This is not about money alone. This is about timing, silence, and a door that only opens once in a lifetime. He did not look for perfection. He looked for pressure. He did not look for confidence. He looked for endurance. While others rushed, you waited. While others spoke, you observed. And that single difference placed you quietly on a list you never knew existed. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear was never meant for everyone. It was prepared for one kind of person only. Someone who could carry weight without breaking. Someone who could be trusted with something most people would misuse within minutes. The plan did not begin with you. But it ends with you. Listen carefully now, because the story shifts here. This wealthy man does not operate in the open. He does not announce intentions. He studies reactions. Years ago, he lost something valuable, not money, but belief in people. Since then, he created a system to find the rare ones who move differently when no one is watching. Your life, especially the parts that felt unfair, were not wasted moments. They were measurements. Every delay you faced. Every door that closed without explanation. Every time you were underestimated. All of it produced data. And that data pointed back to you with unsettling clarity. He noticed how you kept going when outcomes were uncertain. He noticed how you stayed composed when rewards were delayed. He noticed something even more important. You did not become bitter. That is where most fail. That is where his plan collapses for others. But not with you. Because the plan requires patience that feels uncomfortable. Silence that feels heavy. And faith that feels unreasonable. You were never being ignored. You were being evaluated without your consent. Now understand this part deeply. The plan is not to give you wealth. The plan is to position you where wealth naturally flows toward you. That difference changes everything. He does not rescue. He aligns. He does not push. He prepares environments. Somewhere ahead, there is a moment where you will be offered a choice that looks ordinary on the surface. It will feel small. Almost dismissible. Many before you walked away because they expected something louder. Something flashy. Something obvious. You will recognize it differently. Because this video, this moment, is sharpening your awareness. The wealthy man believes that true power is transferred quietly. No applause. No announcement. Just a subtle shift in direction that changes the rest of your life. And when that shift happens, people around you will say you were lucky. They will never see the years of silent qualification that brought you there. They will never know that someone far ahead already knew you would say yes before the question was even asked. Here is where the weight increases. The plan carries responsibility. Not pressure. Responsibility. There is something you will be asked to protect before you are asked to grow it. That is why your past tested your integrity more than your ambition. Wealth amplifies who you already are. And he needed to know what you amplify. When you had little, you still chose fairness. When you had nothing to gain, you still chose restraint. These are rare traits. Especially in a world chasing shortcuts. This is why the plan could not move faster. Rushing would have ruined you. And he refuses to create something that destroys the very person meant to carry it. The moment is approaching where preparation meets opportunity. And when it does, there will be no rehearsal. No second invitation. Just alignment. Just clarity. Just a calm realization that everything before this was necessary. Stay present now. Because the final truth of this part is simple but heavy. The wealthy man does not need you to be fearless. He needs you to be steady. Fear will appear. Doubt will whisper. But steadiness decides outcomes. When the door opens, it will not feel dramatic. It will feel quiet. Almost too quiet. That is how you will know it is real. Remember this moment. Remember these words. Because later, when everything starts moving quickly, you will understand why this message arrived before the reward. This is not motivation. This is positioning. And this is only the beginning. Before you move even a breath forward, understand this. Silence around you has started changing its texture. It is no longer empty. It is loaded. Somewhere, a decision already exists with your name attached to it, waiting for the right internal signal from you. The wealthy man does not chase confirmation from the world. He waits for alignment within the person. That is why nothing has been rushed yet. You may have felt an unusual restlessness lately, like something unseen is approaching but refusing to reveal its shape. That feeling is not anxiety. It is readiness knocking without permission. He believes the most dangerous moment is not failure, but arrival without awareness. So this phase stretches. It tightens. It asks you to stay alert even when nothing seems to be happening. This is where most people disconnect. You stayed. That alone keeps you in motion. Let me tell you something that very few ever realize. The plan includes a separation before elevation. Not from people physically, but from dependency emotionally. He observed how you learned to stand without applause. How you adjusted when support disappeared. How you stopped explaining yourself to people who already decided not to understand. This was not isolation. This was refinement. Wealth handed to someone still seeking validation collapses fast. He could not risk that. So your confidence was rebuilt quietly, layer by layer, through moments where no one clapped for you. Through nights where progress was invisible. Through days where quitting felt reasonable but unnecessary. This is how the plan filters noise. By seeing who continues without witnesses. Now the direction sharpens. Soon, information will reach you that changes how you see your own potential. Not through a speech. Not through a dramatic reveal. Through a realization that feels deeply personal. almost private. It will connect dots from your past that never made sense before. You will suddenly see why certain people exited your life early. Why certain opportunities dissolved at the last second. Why certain delays protected you from paths that looked attractive but were never meant for you. The wealthy man trusts pattern recognition more than promises. And the pattern around you shows adaptability without corruption. Growth without ego. Ambition without cruelty. That combination is rare. That combination is expensive. That combination is exactly what the plan requires. Here is where most misunderstand the weight of what is coming. This is not about becoming visible. It is about becoming unavoidable. The plan does not place you in front of crowds immediately. It places you where decisions are made quietly. Where leverage exists without noise. Where influence travels faster than reputation. You will notice doors opening that do not ask for credentials. Rooms where people listen before you speak. Situations where your presence changes the temperature without effort. This is not luck activating. This is preparation paying interest. And it will feel unsettling at first. Because your old self learned to survive, not to command space. That transition is part of the plan. And it will not wait for you to feel ready. Hold this final truth tightly. The wealthy man does not expect gratitude. He expects continuation. The plan is not generosity. It is succession. Something he built cannot end with him. And not everyone can carry it forward without distortion. You were selected not because you wanted more, but because you handled less with dignity. That is the qualification most people fail without knowing they were tested. When momentum begins, it will test your calm more than your courage. Remember who you were before recognition arrives. Because that version of you is the reason this path opened at all. This is still preparation. But the distance between now and execution is closing fast. Something irreversible is already in motion. You may not see it yet, but certain paths behind you are quietly sealing themselves shut. Not as punishment. As protection. The wealthy man understands one truth better than most. You cannot step into a larger future while keeping every exit open to a smaller past. That is why distractions are fading. That is why familiar comforts feel less satisfying. That is why conversations that once energized you now feel hollow. This is not loss. This is alignment correcting itself. The plan requires a version of you that cannot be pulled backward by nostalgia, guilt, or comfort. You are being prepared to move forward without constantly looking over your shoulder. And that preparation feels uncomfortable only because growth always removes options before it adds power. Here is what separates this stage from everything before it. Your internal voice is being recalibrated. The one that doubted your timing. The one that asked why things were slower for you than for others. The wealthy man studied how you spoke to yourself when results were delayed. Not when things went wrong, but when nothing happened at all. That is where character shows itself. You did not collapse into resentment. You did not poison your own patience. Instead, you learned how to stay grounded while waiting. That skill cannot be taught quickly. It is earned through experience. And it is the exact skill required for what is coming next. Because the plan will place you in situations where outcomes take time, where pressure builds quietly, and where premature action destroys long-term gain. You are ready for that now, even if you do not fully realize it yet. Pay attention to this next shift. Authority will start finding you without effort. Not authority over people, but authority over outcomes. You will notice that your decisions begin to carry weight. That when you choose, things move. That when you pause, others hesitate. This is not dominance. It is gravity. And gravity does not announce itself. It simply pulls. The wealthy man values this more than charisma or speed. Because influence that does not need performance cannot be easily challenged. You were shaped for this through moments where you had to be calm while others panicked. Where you had to think while others reacted. Those moments were rehearsals disguised as stress. And now they begin to reveal their purpose. Understand the risk here. This is the phase where self-sabotage often appears disguised as humility. You may feel tempted to shrink, to delay, to wait for permission that will never come. Do not confuse patience with hesitation. The plan assumes you will step forward when clarity appears, not when comfort arrives. You have already waited long enough to prove endurance. What remains is trust in your own readiness. The wealthy man does not step in to convince. He steps back to observe. He needs to know that when the moment presents itself, you will not retreat into overthinking. This is why clarity is being sharpened now. Why distractions are being removed. Why your focus feels narrower than before. Narrow focus is not limitation. It is precision. Hold this with you as this part closes. What you are moving toward will change how others perceive you, but more importantly, it will change how you perceive yourself. The plan is not about elevation alone. It is about permanence. About building something that does not collapse under attention or pressure. That is why speed was never the goal. Stability was. You were never late. You were being fortified. And as the next phase approaches, you will feel a strange calm mixed with anticipation. That is how you will know you are aligned. Not excited. Not afraid. Steady. And steadiness, more than anything else, is what turns opportunity into legacy. What comes next will not announce itself with noise. It will arrive disguised as responsibility. You will feel it before you understand it. A subtle shift where people begin to rely on your judgment without asking for proof. Where expectations rise quietly, not because you demanded attention, but because your presence has already earned trust. The wealthy man predicted this moment precisely. He knows that true influence begins when others feel safer moving forward simply because you are involved. This is not a coincidence. This is confirmation. You are stepping into a phase where your decisions ripple outward, touching outcomes you may never fully see. And that weight is intentional. Because only someone who respects consequences can be trusted with leverage. At this stage, temptation changes its form. It no longer tries to pull you away with chaos. It invites you with comfort. Ease. Shortcuts that promise faster recognition. The plan requires you to see through that illusion. The wealthy man built his empire by refusing shortcuts that compromise structure. He watched to see if you would do the same. When ease presented itself before alignment, you waited. When speed threatened stability, you slowed down. These were not small choices. They were defining signals. And now the plan adjusts in your favor. Opportunities will begin to stack instead of scatter. Effort will start producing visible results. Not because you suddenly became capable, but because the timing finally matches your capacity. There is something else happening beneath the surface. Your tolerance for nonsense is disappearing. You are no longer willing to entertain conversations that lead nowhere. You are no longer impressed by loud promises without substance. This is not arrogance. This is calibration. The wealthy man anticipated this shift because it always appears right before expansion. When clarity sharpens, waste becomes unbearable. And that is necessary. Because what is coming will demand your attention fully. Half focus will no longer work. Divided loyalty will weaken outcomes. You are being positioned to operate with intention, not reaction. That level of operation feels lonely at first. But loneliness is simply the absence of distraction. Now hear this carefully. Support will arrive after commitment, not before. This is where many miscalculate. They wait for reassurance before stepping forward. The plan works in reverse. Action unlocks confirmation. Movement attracts reinforcement. The wealthy man knows this pattern because he lived it. And he will not interfere until he sees that same sequence activate within you. When you move with quiet certainty, resources align naturally. When you hesitate publicly, momentum stalls privately. This is not pressure. It is design. You were trained through years of uncertainty to move without guarantees. That skill is about to become your greatest advantage. As this part closes, understand the truth you must carry forward. You are no longer preparing to be chosen. You are preparing to choose. That shift changes everything. The plan was never about pulling you up. It was about positioning you where you decide what moves forward and what ends. That responsibility will feel heavy only if you forget how you were shaped. Remember the patience. Remember the restraint. Remember the steadiness. Those qualities did not disappear. They matured. And now they stand behind you like an unshakable foundation. What comes next will build fast. But it will stand long. This is the phase where momentum becomes visible, but explanation becomes impossible. People around you will sense change before they understand it. They will notice how you speak less but say more. How your reactions are measured, not rushed. How your confidence feels settled rather than loud. The wealthy man recognizes this signal clearly. It is the mark of someone who has stopped chasing outcomes and started directing them. You are no longer responding to life. You are shaping its flow. And that shift did not come from sudden insight. It came from long exposure to uncertainty without losing balance. Very few reach this stage without breaking something inside themselves. You did not. That is why the plan advances now. At this level, attention becomes a currency. And you are learning how to spend it wisely. Not every opportunity deserves your energy. Not every invitation deserves your presence. The wealthy man tested this by watching what you ignored, not what you accepted. Restraint reveals more than ambition ever could. When you chose depth over visibility, when you chose structure over speed, you aligned perfectly with the design of the plan. Because what is coming cannot survive constant exposure. It needs protection. It needs discretion. It needs someone who understands that not everything powerful needs to be seen to be effective. You are becoming that person through choice, not instruction. There is a subtle pressure that will accompany this stage. Expectations will rise, but guidance will decrease. This is intentional. Dependency weakens leadership. The wealthy man steps back now, not because you are unready, but because you are capable. This is where trust is demonstrated, not declared. You will feel moments where decisions must be made without reassurance. Where outcomes depend solely on your judgment. Do not mistake this for abandonment. This is transfer. Authority is being handed over quietly, the only way it ever truly lasts. You were prepared for this through countless moments where you had to rely on yourself long before recognition arrived. Now pay attention to your internal response. You may feel a calm detachment from things that once defined your identity. Old goals feel small. Old fears feel distant. This does not mean you have lost passion. It means your scale has changed. The plan always required this recalibration. You cannot carry something expansive while clinging to narrow definitions of success. The wealthy man knows that growth without inner expansion creates collapse. That is why your desires are evolving before your circumstances fully do. Inner alignment always precedes external acceleration. Always. As this part concludes, hold on to one essential truth. The plan is no longer theoretical. It is active. And it will now respond to how you move, not how you hope. Precision matters. Consistency matters. Integrity matters more than ever. You are not being watched with suspicion. You are being trusted with space. What you do with that space will determine the scale of what follows. And as momentum continues to build, remember this. You were never meant to rush. You were meant to arrive fully formed.